What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my Moto G Power review. So let's get started. So this is my review of the Moto G Power. This phone is the successor to last year's Moto G7. Now there is a different phone called the Moto G8, which is very similar to this device, but the Moto G8 is meant for international markets, whereas the Moto G Power is meant for the US market. Now I know that can be a bit confusing as to why they didn't just call this phone the Moto G8 Power. I'm not sure, that's a choice of their marketing department, but the point is that this phone is the successor to last year's Moto G7 in the US. Now I paid $250 for this device, and this is the factory unlocked variant of the phone, and it does work on all major US carriers. So that is very fantastic that you do get full carrier support and compatibility. Now it certainly is possible that the price of the phone has gone down since it was launched, so certainly make sure to take a look at the link in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing. Now the phone features a very large display at 6.4 inches. The display itself is IPS LCD at 1080p. We're getting a PPI of 399 with a 19:9 aspect ratio and an 83% screen to body ratio. So the display could be better if it was OLED, for example, like many of Samsung's budget phones in this price range are. But I still am very happy with the way that the display does look. I think it has very nice colors. I appreciate that it also is 1080p, and in general it does look nice. So yes, there is some room for improvement, but this display is certainly better than the majority of other devices out there in this price range, and I'm sure it will satisfy 99.9% of people out there, as it does satisfy me. Now the device has a hole punch for the front-facing camera up top, and then at the bottom, a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel. But still, in general, the form factor here is very practical. They don't waste too much space, which I do appreciate. And that's a general theme with the Moto G Power. It has the majority of features that you would need in a very practical design and build. So this device is all about practicality. Now the front-facing camera is 16 megapixels. Stay tuned to later in the video as I'll show you photo and video samples from the device. But this variant of the phone comes with 64 gigabytes of internal storage. You can also put a micro SD card in the phone too to expand that storage, which is great. There is no wireless charging with the device, unfortunately. And there's also no face unlock with the phone. We do get a fingerprint sensor on the back though, and that's awesome, but it is a bit disappointing that there is no face unlock to be found. And because I know some people are going to comment that it does have face unlock, no, it does not. We have the PIN code, the fingerprint sensor, and then Smart Lock, which is not face unlock. It's its own extra unlocking method, so there is no face unlock with this phone. Is that a deal breaker? No, not for me personally. I'm totally fine with the fingerprint sensor. That does get the job done, but if you do have a device with face unlock, maybe you're used to using it already, and then you're expecting to get that feature with the Moto G Power, then you might be a bit disappointed. Now on the back of the device, we do have a triple camera setup. So there's a 16 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So one of my favorite things about this phone is that we can actually take ultra wide angle photos with the ultra wide angle camera. And I know that might not seem like too big of a request there, but the Moto G Stylus, which is the bigger sibling to this phone, actually does not give us that ability. You can only take video with the ultra wide angle camera with that device. So you do get all the photo and video taking features and abilities that you'd expect to get with the Moto G Power, and there's no weird exceptions like you get with the Moto G Stylus. So here's how things look, for example, through the main camera lens here, and then I'm going to switch over to 0.5x, which is the ultra wide, and you can see that I can fit a lot more content into the frame with the device. Another thing I like as well is that while there is a manual option here to choose the macro camera, the phone will actually switch to the macro camera automatically if you do place it up close to an object. That's a bit different with how the macro camera works with the A series. See, you can see right there, switch to macro. But that's a bit different with how Samsung's A series uses their macro cameras. With those devices, you do actually have to go into the settings and switch manually over to that macro camera. And while I do appreciate having the ability to do that manually, I also like how phones like the Moto G Power do it automatically. So I really do appreciate that. Now we are getting portrait mode with both the front and rear cameras on this device. And in general, from my experience of using the Moto G7 Power from last year, this phone certainly does give you quite a few camera improvements. I mean, one of the improvements is the fact that we actually have an ultra wide angle camera here. Now I can pick up a Moto G7 Power to do a comparison video. I don't mind doing that, so I might do that in the next month or so. So stay on the lookout for that, because I know that there are quite a few people out there that have a Moto G7 Power and are considering whether or not they should do the upgrade to the Moto G Power, and hopefully that content will give you a better idea of which choice to make. Now internally, we're getting 4 GB of RAM, and we're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665. Now both of those specifications are very impressive for a phone in this price range. I'm really happy that they did give this device 4 gigs of RAM, and the Snapdragon 665 is a very solid processor as well. So you're going to get very good performance in general. In fact, I already did a benchmark test with the device, so let me show you the score from that right now. But you can see I got an overall score of 173,858. So that's a really solid score. Certainly not as good as a flagship phone would be, but this phone comes in at a fraction of the price of a flagship. So in general, you're going to be very happy with the performance with the Moto G Power. And I'm really happy that Motorola decided to go with the Snapdragon 665, as that really is a meaningful improvement over the processor that came in last year's Moto G7 Power. Now the battery in this device is super beefy. We're getting a 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery with 10 watt fast charging. Now 10 watt fast charging is not extremely fast. It's certainly a benefit over the slower 5 watt charging, but it would have been better to see a higher wattage, maybe even like 18 watts or 24 watts. I forget the exact increments that the wattage can be in, but you get the point. I wish that we had the ability to charge the battery a bit faster, but that's fine. What's important and good to know is that we are getting a massive battery with the phone, which is why it's called the G Power. So you'll easily be able to get through an entire day with one charge with this device. So as long as you make sure to plug this phone in before you go to bed, then you're never going to run into a situation where the phone runs out of battery. Unless you're like literally using the phone all day, non-stop, then I suppose you could drain the battery. But even power users are going to get through the day with plenty of battery left on the device. And that's certainly a fantastic thing, because I know that is important to many people. Now, another cool feature with the Moto G Power is that we're getting 4K video recording with the rear camera. That is thanks to the Snapdragon 665, because that processor gives us the ability to take 4K video. And for the front camera, it's just 1080p. But stay tuned again towards a little bit later in the video, as I'll show you photo and video samples from the phone. Now, the software on here is Android 10. And it's a very near stock variant of the software. So Motorola did add in a variety of their own goodies into the software, and they gave us some extra bonus features. And I go through all of that in my Moto G Power tips and tricks video, so certainly make sure to take a look at that after this video to learn more about the specific features that you can do with this device. But I'm a big fan of the software. It is very nicely optimized. I know that Motorola doesn't really have the best track record with providing updates in a timely manner, but the good news though is that the software that we are getting here with the device is very polished. There are no bugs to be found or anything like that. So for example, the cameras are very well optimized, so you're going to get the best performance from that. The OS is optimized to run very well with the processor. So in general, I have no complaints when it comes to the software here on the phone. And if you do buy this device factory unlocked, then you're not going to get any bloatware either. Now, I added these applications onto the phone so I could use them as I've been testing the device, and they all work very well. So keep that in mind as well. Now, the only hardware limitation that this phone has that I wish it did have is NFC. So unfortunately, the Moto G Power does not have NFC. And I'm really surprised by that, especially in 2020, as we're really heading in the direction of NFC being used for more and more things. For example, a lot of cars nowadays are going to be unlocked via NFC in your phone. So that's one example. But of course, mobile payments, that's been around for a long time. That does depend on NFC. So it is a bit disappointing that they didn't give us NFC with the Moto G Power. Let's now talk a little bit more about the hardware here of the device. So it is an all plastic build, of course, minus the display, but the phone does feel very solid. And the majority of people out there are going to be putting a case on this phone anyway, so it doesn't really even matter that it's plastic. But on the other hand, if you are someone who's not sure whether you should get a case or if you should just keep it like this, I would get a case because you will end up scratching a lot of this plastic pretty easily. So if you did want to keep this device in good condition over the long term, and this device probably will last you pretty long considering that battery will hold up for an extended period of time, since it is a very large battery, then I would certainly recommend getting a case for this phone. Even if it's a simple plastic clear case, I would still go for it. And thankfully, since this phone already is very popular, there are tons of different cases available online, so finding one is certainly not an issue. But taking a closer look at the hardware here, on the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. Then on the right, we have the power button and volume button. Then on the top, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack. We have the USB-C port for charging and data transfer. We have the microphone, and we have the speaker. Now, one of the cool things about this phone is that we actually do get stereo speakers through the bottom and the top. I'll give you a demonstration of that in a second, but that's a feature that you actually can't find with really any of the Samsung A-series phones, which are really the biggest competitors to this device. And then taking a look at the backside of the phone, even though it is plastic, it still is a pretty cool design here. Now, you can kind of see some lines in here. It almost looks like a carbon fiber look on the back a little bit. And in general, I think it looks nice and very elegant. And we have the camera module here, fingerprint sensor, and a nice convenient placement. So like I mentioned before, the design of this phone is extremely practical. No, there's nothing too exciting or groundbreaking about this design. It's not like the LG Velvet, for example, how everyone is freaking out about how cool it looks. I mean, this is a very boring phone from the way that it looks, but everything with this phone is implemented in the way that it is for a reason. This is definitely a very practical-minded device where everything has and serves its own purpose, to put it that way. Instagram runs really well on the Moto G Power. Scrolling is very smooth. That's fantastic. You can also zoom in very quickly and easily as well. By the way, shout out to my friend Digital David. Make sure to sub to his channel. But going through stories is really smooth as well. That's not an issue either. You can swipe over and record your own content here with the phone. And you can see we get very good quality with the front-facing camera at 16 megapixels. Content here with the phone. Yes, that's awesome. We get very good quality. Great microphone quality with the device, and of course, really good speakers as well. Gigabytes of internal storage with SD card expansion, which is awesome. Both phones do not have wireless charging, but they both do have fingerprint sensor. So the Moto G Power has some of the best speakers that I've seen or heard from a phone in this price range, and that is due to audio coming out of both the earpiece and the speaker on the right side. So if you are going to be watching video in the landscape format, for example, then you're going to be getting a nice stereo audio listening experience with the phone. And that's got to be definitely a standout feature. If you're like me, then you probably watch a lot of YouTube content on your device. I know that I typically watch about maybe 3 or 4 hours of YouTube per day. Just goes to show where my priorities are. But anyway, yeah, it definitely has very good speakers. Even if you're not watching video content, maybe you're one of those people that likes to play music on your phone when you're taking a shower, for example, there's just a lot of benefits to having a very good speaker on your device, or two speakers for that matter. So I'm a really big fan of the fact that we do get very good speakers with the phone. In general, I've been very impressed with the cameras with the Moto G Power. Now, you're not necessarily going to win any photography awards with the phone, and I would say low light photos is probably its biggest weakness. But on the other hand, you can definitely take a lot of pictures with this phone and have them look very good. So you can post them on Facebook, Instagram, save them for your personal keeping, whatever you do with your pictures, I don't know. But the point is that when you take pictures with the Moto G Power, they're gonna look good enough that you won't be embarrassed to share them anywhere. So even though this is maybe a little bit of a lower end phone in comparison to some of the really expensive phones out there, you can easily take some nice looking pictures that will help preserve your memories for a very long time. And I like having the ultra wide camera. It's not necessarily the widest ultra wide camera ever, but it still does add kind of a new dimension to your photos and does change things up a bit. And I'm glad that we do have that feature with the device. And as far as the macro camera goes, it does its job. I don't know if it's necessarily something that is a make or break with this phone, but it is still nice to have the macro camera. So in general, the cameras on this device certainly continue on with that trend from Motorola, where they just get the job done, they're good enough, and they don't really leave anything else to be desired either, especially considering the price of the phone. But let's now take a look at some video samples from the Moto G Power. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with a front-facing video with the Moto G Power. Let me know what you think of the quality from the device. Also, let me know what you think of the audio quality from the microphone. Really curious about that too, see what you think. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with a test video in 1080p with the Moto G Power using the main camera on the back. Let me know what you think of the quality. Looks like we get very quick autofocus in video mode, which is really awesome. So yeah, I mean, let me know what you think. Looks good to me. It is a little bit windy outside, so the mic might pick that up a little bit. But really curious to know your thoughts. And here is an ultra wide angle test video with the Moto G Power. So, you know, things are a little bit wider here. But on the other hand, we do have the compromise of lower video quality due to the camera not being quite as good in that regard. But I'm really curious to know what you think. From the looks of it, it looks like this phone has very good video stabilization, so I'll give Motorola a lot of credit for that. So that's really cool. So in conclusion, is the Moto G Power worth buying? What are my final thoughts about the phone? I definitely like the Moto G Power. I think it's a really good successor to the Moto G7 Power. It definitely builds on all the strengths that that phone had last year, but makes things even better. I really like the performance that we're getting here with the phone, having 4 gigs of RAM and the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665. I like that we're getting a really nice display here with the phone. We're getting great photo and video quality from the device as well. And of course, the signature feature is that we're getting a beefy 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery. And another really good thing about that really big battery here with the phone is that it's going to make this device last a lot longer compared to its other counterparts in this price range. I'm sure you're well aware that over time, the battery will weaken more and more with your device as you continue to use it. And if you get the Moto G Power, you're not going to be facing the same type of issues that other people face with their smartphones after a year. Since this battery is already probably way bigger than you need it to be, even if it does degrade, you will still have very good battery life for a very long period of time. So I think this phone will definitely last you several years, which adds even more value to it. So I definitely like the phone a lot. Hope you enjoyed this video. This is my review of the Moto G Power. Make sure to sub to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.